Hey everyone, ZCrazyG here with a video that I have been promising. After the Grand Prix Awards gave the community a chance to have their say, I will now be sharing my own personal ranking of the Grand Prix events. These events were the lifeblood of the game post-launch, providing all the unique new content that Beenox had to offer, and it gave them an opportunity to explore new avenues as well as harken back to many classic Crash elements. And with the final Grand Prix, the Gazmoxia Grand Prix, having ended on March 22nd, I feel I've now had enough time to formulate my opinions on them. So I'll be ranking all 8 of the Grand Prix from worst to best in my eyes, judging them as an overall package, with the track, theme, characters, carts, skins, and customization items all taken into consideration. Just to once again note, this is only my opinion, and just because I rank a Grand Prix low does not mean I necessarily think it's bad. It simply means that I just thought it was weaker compared to the others. So let's just knuckle down on into it. Okay, so this isn't any reflection on Spyro as a franchise, far from it, but the Spyro Grand Prix for me was perhaps the weakest of them all. And it annoys me to say that because I genuinely think this was a great concept, a brilliant way for these two franchises to cross over. Though I feel what lacked here was the execution. For example, Spyro Circuit is a decent track, especially thematically with the great addition of gems instead of Wumpa Fruit and unique item crates. But in terms of design, it just felt a bit lacking. The carts were well done in my opinion, and the character selection was pretty good. I mean, of course you have to have Spyro, and Hunter as well was a good choice. But I don't really think Nasty Nork was one that many would clamber for. Come to think of it, a lot of the Spyro related stuff mainly seems to focus on the first Spyro game, and I think that is why it may have felt a bit underwhelming. It didn't really utilize the Spyro theming to the best of its abilities. I mean, I can barely even remember the skins and the customization items in this one. And the one thing that perhaps was a big personal turn off for me is that this was the point where I started to really feel the Grand Prix fatigue more than ever. I just did not feel that engaged to play during this Grand Prix because it simply didn't entice me or interest me that much. As much as I don't want to do it, it's for these reasons that the Spyro and Friends Grand Prix ends up in 8th place. When I first saw the reveal of the Grand Prix and saw the information on the Back in Time Grand Prix, I can't really say I was that excited, and though it still didn't jump out as one of the best, on reflection it certainly has more standouts than I remember. Initially I thought the theme was okay, but they did do well to give it a unique twist. I mean, Prehistoric Playground was a solid ass track and the Lava Rock wheels were awesome, but outside of that the rest of the content just wasn't as up to par with the other Grand Prix in my opinion. The skins were mostly forgettable, the carts were all right, the Mammoth was the only one that really stood out, and the characters were perhaps the biggest letdown of this one. Now, Baby T was absolutely fine by me, a good deserving character to stand alongside the likes of Polar and Pura, but Baby Crash and Baby Coco? Really? I don't know, they were just such nothing characters, really filler ones, let's say. I think overall though, the main thing about Back in Time for me is that it just wasn't anywhere near as memorable or as engaging as some of the other Grand Prix. I look back on others and say, wasn't that such an amazing Grand Prix? There was so much good stuff there. And with Back in Time, I really can't say that as much if I'm being honest. It's not bad at all, it's just that it was nowhere near as enjoyable or as memorable as the other Grand Prix in my eyes. And so unfortunately I must place it at 7th. Okay, so this is where we start dipping into some potentially controversial placements, as at the number 6 spot, I've placed the Winter Festival. Now, I thought the theming of this one was brilliant. The whole candy theme was a much more unique avenue than a simple generic Christmas theme. And it's reflected in the track. Gingerbread Joyride, annoying shortcuts and sumo jellies aside, is an absolutely solid track. Now, the characters that came with this Grand Prix, everyone seems to really like. I think they're alright. For me really, the main standouts were Chicken Stew, and while I really appreciate the obscure additions like Yaya Panda and Rillaroo, there are just many characters that I would sooner pick. Though to be fair, Hasty was a great and fan-pleasing callback while also introducing a whole new personality. Sadly though, everything else really does let this Grand Prix down. I really don't like the customization items here, they're just visually really unappealing, and the skins, aside from Winter Guardian and Spyro, just all felt really uninspired. Like, I think there could have been so much more potential given the theme, and the carts, probably my least favourite carts they've added so far, they just don't stand out at all to me. So overall, this Grand Prix was a very mixed bag, but it's got just enough to stand out to rise it to 6th place, I think. Now, not everyone's first try is perfect, but Beenox did really well to set a good example with the Nitro Tour. Since then, they have ironed out some of the more rough areas of the Grand Prix formula, but even so, Nitro Tour was a reassurance that we were in good hands with the post-launch season of content. Bringing Torna and the Trophy Girls back, giving them all more characterization was cool to see. Twilight Tour was a great track to ease us in, giving some varied track design with familiar themes from Crash 3 while not going too complex straight in. The skins were all decent, the carts were all decent, the Lachey and the Rocket I certainly liked. The only really weak thing is the customization item, since it was just the Twilight wheels. Though I'm more inclined to forgive it since it was still early days for these events. Essentially, all this stuff was really decent. Not the best that the Grand Prix events provided, but a solid average I would say. It did just the right amount to get players invested in the idea of these events, but also proved that the best was still yet to come. And so I think it's earned a comfortable spot in 5th place. The top half of this list I found was a lot harder to rank for me personally, but after some deliberation, I've put the Gasmoxia Grand Prix at 4th place, a solid Grand Prix to end if any. The whole theme of going to Gasmoxia, just perfect, and bringing arguably the most requested character, Emperor Velo in his real form along for this one, you can hardly go wrong. Drive Through Danger for me is a close contender for the best Grand Prix track with its intricate and challenging design and great theming. Not to mention, in my opinion, the underrated and fantastic customization items. Now, excluding the absolutely awesome and fan-pleasing Velo Chopper, the Galactic Cruiser and the Void Manta just didn't quite do it for me. On top of that, the skins, bar 1 or 2, were a bit lackluster for the most part. Again, like the Winter Festival, I just thought given the theme, they could have explored so much more potential with these. It was close to taking 3rd, but I just felt that those last couple of elements really held it back that slight bit. But when all is said and done, it really was a fitting way to conclude the Grand Prix seasons. So, our number 3 spot I honestly felt could have contended with 2nd and 1st because I felt that it did so many aspects well, with just one slight downside. The Neon Circus Grand Prix from the get-go had such a fantastic concept. The theme allowed for a massive amount of creativity in the content and it certainly delivered. The characters were brilliant. Koala Kong, Pasadena, Von Clutch, and everyone's second favourite shitpost character, the King Chicken. Need I say more? The customization items and skins were incredibly unique and varied, and the carts, it's perhaps the only Grand Prix where I think all 3 carts were all-round solid ones. Ring Rally as well was one of the best additions I think ever made to the game, providing a game mode that not only allowed new players to get to grips with tracks a lot easier, but also providing a serious challenge to seasoned players. The only thing I can sort of fault this Grand Prix on was unfortunately the track. Now, I want to love Koala Carnival. Visually, it's one of the most spectacular tracks. And in its defense, despite being a circle, it does a lot for simply being a circle. And I guess at least one of the Grand Prix tracks had to be fairly simplistic. It's just a shame that it had to be this one. And though I still do enjoy it, it does pale in comparison gameplay-wise to the other track offerings. Though overall, this Grand Prix set out with a fantastic premise, and for the most part, managed to deliver. So, coming in second, it was tough, very tough to pick between this and first place, but I feel that this position belongs solely to the spooky Grand Prix. People loved this Grand Prix when it came out, and rightly so, it was fantastic. The Halloween theme, of course, was a no-brainer success, giving Beenox a wide array to work with, and that they certainly did. Some larger-than-life skins, the standout and warped customization items, and the carts, though being thematically very tied to Halloween, are still so wonderfully designed and stylized that they are still great to use. Taking from Tag Team Racing's roster of vehicles and doing some well-earned design updates. The characters, I don't even think I need to mention why the characters are so good. Nina Cortex is a very welcome character, as is Embryo and Komodo Mo, who are original trilogy staples who deserved their places from the start. Even the track, Nina's Nightmare, really drenched itself in the full-on spooky atmosphere and played around with some good design and interesting hazards. And need I forget the addition of the engine swap. Such a highly requested feature that no longer restricted players' character choice based on the stat class. Along with the introduction of the now widely used drift class, it needs to be commended. But while I will agree that this was a very solid Grand Prix, it was just beat out ever so slightly. I think what really made the Russland Grand Prix so deserving of the #1 spot for me was that it completely subverted any and all expectations I had for it. Based on the data mine, I won't lie, it seemed like it was just going to be somewhat generic and filler. But damn, they took the apocalypse and made it fun as hell. They just went above and beyond with this one, providing such a wonderfully unique flavour to the theme while keeping it distinctly Crash. Megamix, though an unusual and obscure choice for a character, was given an incredible redesign with great attention to detail. The carts really capture this gritty, wild feel they were going for, and the skins, my god, were perfect, giving the starting 8 characters such an amazing fresh flair that managed to be so unique to each character. The customization items were also pretty neat, and oh lord, that track. Megamix Mania, in my opinion, was Beenox's best Grand Prix track. With such a wonderfully colourful and insane visual style combined with brilliantly varied and well-balanced track design, it just nailed it. And for all these reasons, it was also when my engagement with the game was at its highest since perhaps a few weeks after launch. It just made the game so much fun to play at the time. So without a doubt, I'm going to say the Russland Grand Prix is my personal favourite of the Grand Prix events. And so there you are, my personal ranking of all the Grand Prix events. Now, I think it's important to state that though I do hold certain Grand Prix higher than others, one thing I appreciate in each one of them is the time, dedication, attention to detail, and care that Beenox put into all of these. Though I found some to be more enjoyable than others, I still cannot falter the way Beenox managed to keep the game alive in such a way, working so hard to please fans and provide content in an overall satisfying and pleasing package. And with that, I will leave it there. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope you all enjoyed the video. Do let me know how you would have ranked the Grand Prix events below in the comments. Once again, thank you all for watching. Like and subscribe if you feel like it, and I'll see you all in the next video. Take care, guys.